Introduction. Stop for a moment. Listen, not to the noise around you, but to that silent feeling that has been with you for some time. It is the sensation of not being in command, of being a passenger in the vehicle of your own life, driven by an impulse you didn't choose. Do you know it? Say it's the pang of frustration every time you promise that this will be the last time. It's the bitter taste of disappointment when, once again, you yield to that longing that seems stronger than your will. You fight a daily battle in silence. To the outside world, everything might look normal, but inside you feel the weight of an invisible chain. A habit, a consumption, a behavior, no matter the form it takes. It started as a choice, perhaps as an escape or a momentary pleasure. But over time it has grown, taken root in your mind, and now seems to have a life of its own. It whispers in your ear, convinces you, exhausts you, and in the end, always wins. We have normalized this struggle, calling it a lack of willpower, or simply a bad habit. But it's time to call things by their name. This is not a simple habit. It is a form of slavery, one where the chains are not made of iron but of neural patterns. The cell has no bars, but it is built with excuses and self-deception. And the jailer is not a stranger. It is a part of you that has taken control. To live like this is to survive, not to live. It is to surrender pieces of your freedom, your potential, and your inner peace in exchange for an increasingly empty reward. But what if I told you that in your hands you hold the power to start a rebellion? This audiobook is not a collection of sermons or a manual on how to feel guilty. It is an escape map. It is the guide that will teach you how to see the locks of your chains, to understand the mechanism of your prison, and most importantly, to forge the keys to open it. Throughout the following chapters, we will not just fight your vices. We are going to dismantle them from the root. You will learn to reconfigure your mind, anticipate impulses, and build a life so full and satisfactory that the cell that once contained you becomes irrelevant. The path to freedom requires courage, honesty, and the unshakable decision to claim what is yours. The reward is not just quitting a bad habit. It is taking back control of your life. The question is not whether you can be free. The question is, are you ready to start fighting for it? Chapter 1. The Invisible Chains. When you hear the word vice, what image comes to mind? For most, the word evokes dramatic, almost cinematic images. We think of a dark bar, the clinking of ice in a glass of whiskey. We think of cigarette smoke filling a room, the sound of cards at a clandestine poker table, or the desperation of someone facing a slot machine. These are powerful images, loaded with judgment and stigma, that we've learned from the movies and stories we're told. And yes, of course, these are vices. They are devastating forms of slavery that have shattered lives, families, and futures. But in this first step of our journey together, I ask you to set those images aside for a moment. I ask you to widen the focus, to look beyond these caricatures of self-sabotage, because the most common forms of slavery in the 21st century are not always so obvious. They are quieter, more subtle, and often socially accepted. They hide in plain sight, disguised as habits, ways of being, or even virtues. I am talking about the invisible chain that ties you to your phone screen, forcing you to swipe through an infinite stream of empty content when you could be connected with the real world, with your loved ones, or with yourself. I am talking about the irrepressible impulse to procrastinate, to put off that important task that could change your life, exchanging it for the numbing comfort of distraction. I am talking about the compulsive need to seek approval from others, to mold your opinions and actions not according to your inner compass, but according to the applause or rejection of the audience. A chain can be the perfectionism that paralyzes you, preventing you from starting anything for fear it won't be flawless. It can be work addiction, which makes you sacrifice your health and relationships on the altar of productivity that is never enough. It can be chronic complaining, that habit of always finding the fault, the injustice, the dark side of every situation until your own mind becomes a toxic place to inhabit. Or it can be something as seemingly harmless as a restrictive diet that turns into an obsession, exercise that goes from healthy to a punishment, or the need to fill every second of silence with noise, with podcasts, with music, out of the terror of facing your own thoughts. The true definition of a vice has nothing to do with morality. It is not about whether an activity is good or bad in itself. It is about your relationship with it. The key question is, Do you have control or does it? Is it a tool you use at will, or is it a master you serve without question? An invisible chain is any thought, behavior, or substance that, repeatedly, subtracts from your freedom, steals your energy, and pulls you away from the person you truly want to be. It doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal, if it's applauded or condemned by society. If it has you trapped, it is a chain, and the first step to breaking it is to have the courage to see it for what it is. In the 3 phases of imprisonment, to understand how to free ourselves, we must first understand how we become prisoners. No chain is forged overnight. It is a slow, almost imperceptible process that follows a predictable pattern in most cases. Every chain, without exception, is born as a solution. It is born as a refuge. Think about the origin of that habit that dominates you today. It is very likely that it started as a response to a real problem, to genuine pain. Perhaps you felt lonely, and social media offered you an instant connection, a relief from that loneliness. Perhaps you were overwhelmed by work stress, and that glass of wine at night became the unmistakable sign that the day was over, a balm that relaxed your muscles and mind. Perhaps you felt deep boredom or a lack of purpose, and video games provided you with a world of clear missions, immediate rewards, and a sense of accomplishment you didn't find in your real life. Phase 1, the tool, the solution. In its initial phase, the chain is not a chain at all. It is a tool, and it is a very effective tool. It works. It gives you exactly what you need at that moment: relief, pleasure, distraction, connection. Your brain, whose main mission is to keep you safe and seek rewards while saving energy, takes note of this. It says, aha, this action solves this problem. It is a good survival strategy. And because it is a good strategy, you repeat it. And every time you repeat it, the neural pathway in your brain gets a little deeper, like a trail in the woods that gets more and more marked with each footstep. Phase 2. The routine, the autopilot. What was once a conscious decision, I feel stressed today, so I'm going to have a drink, slowly turns into autopilot. You no longer think about it. You come home and your feet lead you to the kitchen. You open the bottle. You pour yourself a drink. It's a ritual. Your brain has learned that this sequence of actions leads to a reward, and it automates it to save energy. There is no longer deliberation. It simply happens. The trail in the woods has become a paved road. It is in this phase that we begin to notice the first cracks in the armor. A small voice inside you begins to whisper that perhaps this is getting out of hand. And this is where the most powerful defense mechanism of any addiction appears: self-deception. To protect the habit, to protect that source of relief that we value so much, we begin to tell ourselves stories. We tell ourselves, I control it. I could quit whenever I want, I just don't want to. Or, it's not a big deal. Everyone does it. One of the most common lies is, I'm not hurting anyone. And perhaps the most insidious of all, tomorrow I start. Tomorrow I'll quit. These lies are the mortar that holds the links of the chain together. They allow us to keep going, ignoring the growing warning signs. Phase 3, the prison, the cost. And so, without realizing it, we slide into the third and final phase, the prison. In this stage, the dynamic has completely changed. The behavior that once gave us immense pleasure or relief now barely provides a shadow of that original sensation. We do it, but it no longer fulfills us. However, what has grown exponentially is the discomfort we feel if we don't do it. We no longer seek the carrot of reward. We run to escape the stick of withdrawal, whether physical or psychological. You no longer drink to feel good, but to stop feeling bad. The chain has completely closed. The refuge has become a cell, and the tool that once served you is now your master. And the most tragic thing is that you yourself have become your own jailer. The real price of slavery. When we think about the cost of our chains, our mind usually goes to the most obvious things. But the real price of slavery is much deeper, more subtle and far more devastating. It is paid with a currency that cannot be recovered, your own life. The theft of time and mental energy. The cost is not just the time you spend engaging in the habit. It's the time you spend thinking about it before you do it, negotiating with yourself, planning when and how you'll be able to satisfy the urge. It's the mental energy you consume resisting it, an exhausting battle that leaves you powerless for other important things. Sum all that up, the before, the during, and the after. Your chain doesn't just steal your present, it steals all the possible futures you could create if your mind and time were truly yours. The silent erosion of self-trust. Every time you make a promise to yourself and break it, something terrible happens. Every time you say, starting tomorrow I won't do it anymore, and the next day you fall back, a small brick in the wall of your self-esteem crumbles. You stop trusting your own word. This lack of self-trust is a poison that seeps into all areas of your life. How can you pursue a better job if you don't trust your ability to be disciplined? The most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself, and every time you yield to your chain, you are betraying that relationship. You are teaching yourself over and over that you are not trustworthy, that your word has no value. The grey filter, loss of joy. This is perhaps the saddest cost of all. When your brain gets accustomed to receiving a massive artificial dose of pleasure or relief from a single source, everything else starts to pale in comparison. The small joys of everyday life lose their color. A walk in nature, a deep conversation with a friend, the satisfaction of a job well done, everything feels a little tasteless. Your brain has decalibrated its reward system. It has become addicted to fireworks and has forgotten how to appreciate the light of a candle. Without realizing it, your chain has not only taken your freedom, it has robbed you of the ability to enjoy it. And the first act of freedom, naming the jailer at this point, you may feel a weight in your chest. You may feel discomfort, anger, or sadness in recognizing the truth in these words. That is good. That discomfort is a sign that something inside you is awakening. It is the first spark of rebellion. Guilt looks to the past and paralyzes us. Responsibility looks to the future and mobilizes us. Today we choose responsibility. And the first act of responsibility, the first inescapable step toward freedom, is an act of radical bravery, naming your jailer. I want you to take a moment right now, in the privacy of your own mind. Make it a contract with yourself. I want you to ask yourself with complete honesty a few questions. What behavior in my life do I feel dominates me more than I dominate it? Be specific, name it. Is it the need to check email every 5 minutes? Is it that show you compulsively watch until 3 in the morning? Is it the food you use to calm your emotions? Give it a clear, concise name. What aspect of my life do I lie about or hide from the people I love? Chains often thrive in secrecy. What you do in secret is usually a giant warning sign pointing directly to your prison. What important dream, what important goal, what version of myself am I sacrificing on the altar of this habit? Connect with that. Is it the health you need, the mental clarity for your project, or is it simply peace, the ability to sit quietly with yourself and feel whole? Do this exercise. Name your jailer. Look it in the eye without judgment, without hatred, but with firm clarity. This act of naming is not meant to make you feel bad. Quite the opposite. Its purpose is to turn on the first light in a room that has been dark for a long time. It is impossible to fight an enemy you cannot see. By naming it, you make it real. You pull it out of the shadows of denial and place it in front of you. And in doing so, you change the power dynamic. You stop being a passive victim of a mysterious urge and become a conscious observer, a fighter who has just identified their opponent. This is the first act of freedom. And although the road ahead is long, I want you to know that this first step is the most difficult and the most important of all. You have looked within and chosen truth over the comfort of ignorance. You have lit a flame. In the following chapters, we will learn together how to protect that flame, how to feed it, and how to turn it into a bonfire that will burn your chains forever. Chapter 2, The Cry for Freedom. In the previous chapter, we did something incredibly brave. We turned on a light in the darkest room of our mind and named our jailer. We saw our invisible chains, not with judgment, but with honest clarity. If you've done that exercise, if you've felt that pang of recognition, I want you to know that you have completed the most crucial step. But clarity by itself is not enough to free us. Awareness is the map, but it is not the fuel that moves the vehicle. Today in this chapter, we are going to find that fuel. We are going to unearth the most powerful force you possess to generate lasting change. Your why. We have all tried to change based on logic and obligation. We tell ourselves, I should quit smoking. It's bad for my health. I should stop spending so much money. And my finances are suffering. I should wake up earlier. I would be more productive. We use the word should as a whip, trying to flog ourselves into action. And what is the usual result? We fail. We last a few days, perhaps a couple of weeks, using that faculty we call willpower. But willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired. And when you face a stressful day, bad news, or simply the exhaustion of routine, that fatigued muscle gives out. And the chain, which has been waiting patiently, tightens again, dragging you back to the starting point, but this time with an extra dose of guilt for having failed. The problem is that we have been trying to win an emotional war with logical weapons. Your chain was not forged with logic. You didn't start your compulsive habit after coldly analyzing its pros and cons on a spreadsheet. It started as a response to an emotional need, the need for relief, connection, pleasure, or escape from pain. It is a deep emotional force that keeps you trapped. And to defeat an emotional force, you need an emotional force that is even more powerful. Logic tells you why you should want to be free, but it is your heart, your soul, your spirit that must scream for that freedom. A should is a fragile whisper that is drowned out by the first setback. A cry for freedom is a roar that is born from your gut, a force that will sustain you in the darkest moments. Today we are not going to whisper. Today we are going to learn how to scream. The motivation of seeking versus fleeing. To begin, we have to understand that there are two fundamental types of motivation. Fleeing motivation, short term. This is what drives us away from pain. You're afraid of a medical diagnosis, bankruptcy, or losing your partner. This fear is a very powerful motivator in the short term. It is the push that often makes us take the initial decision to change. It is useful, it is necessary, but it has a fundamental problem. As you move away from the danger, the fear diminishes. When you have been without your habit for a few weeks and the immediate negative consequences begin to fade, the urgency dies down. And without that urgency, the fleeing motivation loses its strength, leaving you vulnerable to a relapse. Seeking motivation, sustainable. This is the only type of motivation that generates sustainable change. It's not about running away from something you fear. It's about running towards something you love, something you desire with every fiber of your being. It is not an escape from the hell of your present. It is a pilgrimage toward the heaven of your future. This motivation does not fade with time. On the contrary, it gets stronger as you get closer to your goal. It is an inexhaustible engine. Our work today is to build that engine. The excavation. Finding your deep why to do this, we are going to use a simple but incredibly profound technique. It is an adaptation of a method known as the 5 whys. It involves taking your superficial desire for change and, like an archaeologist of your own soul, digging deeper and deeper until you find the treasure hidden underneath. Take the chain you identified in the previous chapter. The answer to the question, why do I want to break free from this? Write down your first, most obvious answer. Maybe it is, I want to stop procrastinating on social media. Good, that's the surface. Now begin the excavation. Ask yourself, and why is that important to me? Well, it's important because I want to have more time to work on my project. One layer down. And why is it important for you to have more time for your project? Because if I finish my project, I will feel like I have accomplished something important. Closer. And why is it important for you to feel like you have accomplished something important? Because for a long time I felt like I'm not capable, that I don't have the discipline to finish what I start. I want to prove to myself that I can. We're hitting the core. And why is it so important for you to prove to yourself that you can? Because I want to be an example for my children. I don't want them to grow up seeing a parent who gives up on their impulses. I want them to see someone who fights for their dreams, so they learn to fight for theirs. I want them to be proud of me. And there it is. Do you see it? We have moved from I want to stop looking at my phone to I want to be an example of strength and a source of pride for my children. The former is an annoying chore. The latter is a sacred mission. The former depends on willpower. The latter is fueled by love, an infinitely more powerful fuel. Do this exercise now. Pause if necessary. Take your superficial desire and ask yourself why. 5 times. Do not settle for the easy answers. Dig deep. The deepest answers are often related to our core values: love, freedom, integrity, security, growth, peace, connection. When you link your desire for change to one of these essential values, you stop seeing it as a sacrifice. Quitting your vice is no longer giving up something. It is an act of affirmation. It is the way you honor what is most important to you. It is an act of integrity. The vision of freedom, the irresistible future. Once you have unearthed your deep why, your sacred mission, the next step is to make it real. We need to take that abstract idea and turn it into an image so vivid and so vibrant in your mind that it pulls you forward with a magnetic force. Our brain is an amazing tool. It does not clearly distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. We can use this to our advantage. We are going to create a vision of the future so irresistible that the comfort of your current cell seems unbearable in comparison. I want to invite you to do a visualization exercise. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and take a couple of deep breaths. The free future. Travel 1 year into the future. In this future, you have succeeded. You are completely free of your chain. You are standing on an ordinary morning of that future. Feel the absence of the hangover, the guilt, the mental fog. Feel the energy in your body, a calmness and vitality you may have forgotten. Look around. What do you see? What do you hear? Look at your reflection. See that spark of self-respect. What are you doing with all that recovered time and energy? Feel the deep satisfaction of a job well done. Feel the serene happiness that comes from within. This is the life that is waiting for you. The painful alternative. Now, for a moment, do the opposite. Travel 1 year into the future, but this time a future where nothing has changed, where you have continued yielding to your chain day after day. How do you wake up on that morning? Feel the familiar weight of disappointment. See the weariness, the resignation in your eyes. Note the tension, the lack of connection. Feel the weight of another year of broken promises. The fundamental law of change is this: we only change when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. Your task is to make the vision of this painful future so unacceptable and the vision of your free future so irresistible that the choice becomes obvious. Tied toward anchoring the mission, the declaration of freedom, we have unearthed your deepest why and painted a vivid picture of the freedom that awaits. The final step is to anchor all this in the physical world. Create the declaration. Take your deep why and your vision of freedom and condense them into a single sentence. A declaration of freedom. This declaration must be short, emotional, and written in the present tense, as if it were already a reality. Example: integrity. I am a strong, present parent, full of energy, who lives with integrity and shows my children the path to freedom. Example: peace. I live in peace with my decisions, I fully trust my word, and I am the sovereign architect of my own life. Physical commitment. Write your declaration down. In a notebook, in a note on your phone. And this is your commitment. You are going to read this declaration every day. In the morning upon waking, to set the intention for your day, and at night before sleeping to remind you why you are fighting. Recite it silently when you feel temptation lurking. This declaration is your North Star. In moments of doubt, when the old slave voice whispers in your ear, this sentence will be your anchor. It will remind you that you are not giving up a small pleasure. You are fighting for the greatest cause of all, your own life. You have found your cry for freedom. Now, it is time to start learning how to tear down the walls. Chapter 3. Mapping the Prison. In the last 2 chapters, we've done immense inner work. First, we had the courage to name our jailer. Then we unearthed the cry for freedom that lives within us, our deepest why. Now we are at a crucial point. We have the awareness and we have the motivation. But if we rush to attack the walls of our prison, armed only with good intentions, we are going to crash. A prisoner who tries to escape without knowing the layout of the jail, the guard schedules, and the system's weaknesses is doomed to be recaptured. We've been led to believe that our chains are the result of a moral failure or a mysterious lack of willpower. But that is a lie. It is, in fact, the biggest lie your own addiction tells you to keep you trapped. The truth is that your chain, however powerful it may seem, is not chaotic. It is a machine, a perfectly designed, predictable machine, and most importantly, a machine that can be dismantled. All compulsive behavior, from nail-biting to the most severe addiction, operates by following a simple, universal neurological pattern. A pattern that, once you understand it, stops being a terrifying monster in the dark and becomes a simple mechanism you can observe and finally redesign. This pattern is known as the habit loop, and it consists of 3 fundamental parts. Memorize these 3 names because they are the keys to understanding the map of your prison: the cue, the trigger or signal; the routine, the behavior itself; the action you perform; the reward, the benefit or feeling you get immediately after the routine. Cue, routine, reward. This is the blueprint of every one of your chains. It is a program running in the background of your brain. And our mission in this chapter is to bring it into the light. We are not going to try to break the chain yet. We are not going to fight. Today, we are simply going to observe. We will become detectives of our own mind, and our case is to trace the exact map of our prison. The cue. Disarming the guards. The first piece of the puzzle, and often the most invisible, is the cue. The cue is the prison guard who blows the whistle. It is the starting gun that tells your brain, now, run the program. It is the switch that activates autopilot. As long as we are not conscious of our cues, we will always be their puppets. Almost all the cues that activate our habits fall into 5 very clear categories. Your job as a detective starting today will be to identify which of these categories activate your chains. Time. The urge is anchored to a specific time of day, e.g., smoking at 10 a.m., opening the refrigerator at 10 p.m. The clock can be the most punctual guard. Location. Our personal geography is full of neurological landmines. The simple act of entering a room, e.g., the armchair from which you browse the internet, or sitting in a certain chair is enough to activate the program. Preceding event. The trigger is what you just did beforehand, e.g., the urge to smoke appears after finishing a cup of coffee. Procrastination strikes just upon opening a difficult work document. Your emotional state, the most powerful. The vast majority of destructive chains are ineffective strategies for managing emotions, e.g., you turn to your vice when you feel stressed, bored, lonely, anxious, or insecure. Even positive emotions can be a cue, e.g., celebrating a small success with a harmful reward. Other people. Sometimes the cue is a who. Is there a particular friend or family member whose presence triggers the habit, e.g., drinking too much, complaining, or seeking comfort? Field mission number 1. Data collection for the next week. Don't try to resist your vice. Forget about resistance. Your sole task is data collection. Every time you feel the urge, the craving to execute your routine, stop for a second and jot down the answers to these 5 questions. Where am I? Location. What time is it? Time. What is my emotional state? Emotion. Who else is with me? Other people. What action immediately preceded the impulse? Preceding event. Do it without judging yourself. You are a scientist in a laboratory. After a few days, you will start to see a pattern. You will discover that your chain is not as random as you thought. That knowledge is the beginning of your power. The routine. Observing the cell walls. The second part of the loop is the routine. This is the most obvious component. The act of smoking, opening the app, eating the cake, or shouting. It is the behavior we want to change. For years, you have focused your energy on fighting this routine, trying to stop it through sheer willpower. And you have failed over and over. Why? Because the routine is not the real problem. It is only the visible symptom of a system operating in the shadows. Mindfulness exercise. The routine is the 4 walls of your cell. We are simply going to observe it with a new perspective. The next time the cue activates and you find yourself executing your routine, try not to do it in a trance. Instead, activate your detective mind. Observe the process. Feel the weight of the object in your hand, the phone, the food. Notice the exact movement of your body. Sense the thoughts. Pay attention to the thoughts crossing your mind as you do it. Are they thoughts of relief, of guilt? The goal of this exercise is not to add more guilt, but to break the spell. Compulsive habits thrive in unconsciousness. The simple act of observing them with mindfulness introduces a small wedge into the machinery of automatism. You begin to realize that it is not you who is doing that. It is a program running through you. And the moment you can see the program, you begin to create a distance, a small space between the observer, your true self, and the observed behavior, the chain. In that small space resides the seed of all freedom. The reward. Unmasking the jailer, we now come to the most important and revealing part of our map, the reward. This is the jailer of the prison. It is the reason the program runs in the first place. Your brain doesn't execute a habit because it likes the routine itself. It does so because it craves the reward that comes at the end, the deepest secret. And the biggest deception is that the reward your brain seeks is almost never what you think it is. We believe we have a vice for tobacco, but perhaps the reward is a 5-minute break from a stressful job. We believe we are addicted to sugar, but perhaps the reward is emotional comfort after a lonely day. We believe we can't live without checking social media, but perhaps the reward is instant distraction from facing a difficult task. Understanding the true reward is the most liberating discovery. You realize you are not a monster with an uncontrollable desire for something destructive. You are simply a human being with legitimate needs, a need for comfort, relaxation, connection, who has learned a very poor strategy to satisfy them. The routine is just the vehicle. The reward is the destination. If you don't know the true destination, you will never be able to offer your brain a healthier, alternative vehicle to get there. Field mission number 2, experimentation, discovering the hidden reward. Once you have identified your cues, you have to start playing with the routine to unmask the reward. When you feel the urge activated by one of your usual cues, you are going to introduce a variable, a different routine, the stress experiment. If your cue is stress in the afternoon, the need for chips, instead of going to the vending machine, try an alternative. Stand up and take a 5-minute walk, or go chat with a pleasant co-worker for a bit. The key question. After each experiment, ask yourself, has the urge diminished? Do I still feel the same desperate need for the old routine? The eureka! If you discover that after chatting with your co-worker, the urge has almost completely disappeared, you have made a monumental discovery. The reward you were seeking was not the taste of the chips. It was social connection and distraction. The power of the vice vanishes in that instant. It is no longer an almighty giant. It is just one of many options available to satisfy a need. Summary of the map: we have traveled a long way. You have moved from being a confused, frustrated prisoner to being an expert cartographer of your own prison. You have the blueprints in your hands. You know the guards who sound the alarm, the cues, location, time, emotion, event, person. You have observed the walls of your cell, the routine. You have begun to unmask the jailer's false promises, the reward, the true need. You are no longer an ignorant slave. You are an informed strategist. You know that your chain is not a character flaw, but a learned neurological loop. The goal today was not to escape. It was to understand. You have studied the map and located the weaknesses of the system. Now you are ready for the next step, forging the key. Chapter 4. Forging the Master Keys in. The last chapter, we became cartographers, mapping out the blueprint of our prison with almost scientific precision. We identified the guards who sound the alarm, the cues, we observed the walls of our cell, the routine, and we unmasked the jailer's false promise, the reward. This knowledge is power, but a map, however detailed, won't get you out of prison. To escape, you need a key, and today, we are going to learn to forge not 1, but 3 master keys that can open practically any lock that keeps you imprisoned. Before we begin forging, we must banish one of the most damaging myths about change, the fallacy of the vacuum. Most of us, when trying to eliminate a bad habit, do so with a pure brute force strategy. We grit our teeth and say, I'm just going to stop doing it. We try to create a vacuum where there was once a behavior, and we fail miserably. Why? Because nature, both external and in our own minds, abhors a vacuum. Imagine your life as a garden. Your habit is a robust, deep-rooted weed. If you simply pull it out, you leave a hole of bare earth. What do you think will happen? In a matter of days, if not hours, the same weed or another equally resilient one will grow back in that empty space to reclaim it. The only way to eliminate a weed forever is to pull out the old one, and in that very instant, Plant a desirable flower or plant in its place, something that occupies that space with beauty and purpose. The same is true with our habits. You cannot simply eliminate a routine. You have to replace it. This leads us to the golden rule of habit change, a principle as simple as it is powerful that will be the basis of our first master key. The rule is this: don't fight to eliminate the habit loop. Simply change one of its parts. And as we now know, the easiest part to change is neither the cue nor the reward, but the routine. The golden rule, therefore, can be formulated as: keep the same cue, deliver the same reward, but insert a new routine. Remember the detective work you did in the previous chapter. You discovered the true reward your brain was seeking with your old habit: relaxation, distraction, connection, comfort. That discovery was the key to everything. Your brain is not stupid. It is trying to satisfy a legitimate need. The problem is not the need. The problem is the destructive strategy you have learned to satisfy it. Our task is not to deny the need, but to offer our brain a better, healthier strategy to reach the same destination. This brings us to our first master key, the art of substitution. Master key 1. The art of substitution. To forge this key, the first thing you need is a menu of alternatives. You cannot decide what new routine to use in the middle of a panic attack or an irrepressible urge. You must have a pre-established plan. Your mission now is to brainstorm, creating a habit menu that you can consult when the cue activates. Take paper and pencil. At the top, write the main reward you discovered in your experimentation phase. For example, stress relief or distraction from boredom. Now, below, let's list at least 5 new, healthy, and very importantly, quick routines that can deliver that same reward. Main reward new. Quick routines, substitution menu. Stress relief, relaxation. 60-second deep breathing exercise. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. Go outside or look out a window and take fresh air for 3 minutes. Listen to one completely calming song with headphones. Do a set of simple stretches to release neck and shoulder tension. Prepare a cup of herbal tea, focusing fully on the process. Distraction from boredom. Read 5 pages of an interesting book. Do a puzzle or crossword for 10 minutes. Listen to a short podcast episode that teaches you something new. Use a language app and do a 5-minute lesson. Tidy and clean a small space on your desk or room. Social connection. Send a text to a friend or family member you haven't spoken to in a while just to say hello. Get up and walk to a coworker's desk for a 2-minute chat. Call your parents or a loved one. Write a quick email to someone you admire. Energy or stimulation. Do 10 push-ups or 20 squats. Drink a large glass of cold water. Salpicarte la cara con agua fría. Play an energizing song and dance or move for its duration. Exporta a hojas de cálculo. Once you have your menu, the next step is to create an explicit action plan. Improvisation is the enemy of change. You need a clear instruction for your brain. The formula is simple. When I feel cue, I will do new routine to get reward. Write this plan down. Put it on a sticky note on your computer. Create a reminder on your phone. Make it real. Initially, you will have to consciously force the change. But every time you successfully execute your new routine, you are paving a new neural pathway. With each repetition, the new path will become easier, and the old one will start to become overgrown with disuse. This is the key of substitution, not destroying the old, but building the new until it becomes so strong that the old is rendered irrelevant. Master Key 2, Environmental Redesign. The second master key is so powerful that, if you use it well, you often won't even need the first one. It is based on a simple truth. We are creatures profoundly influenced by our environment. Willpower is a limited and unreliable resource, but our environment is with us 24/7, constantly shaping us. Olympic athletes don't live in a pastry shop. Monks don't meditate in the middle of a casino. The most successful and disciplined people are simply masters at the art of designing an environment that makes their desired behaviors inevitable and their unwanted behaviors almost impossible. Instead of trying to be a hero who resists temptation every minute, why not become an intelligent architect who eliminates temptation at the root? You have to stop viewing your environment as neutral and start seeing it as a system that can be working for you or against you. Our mission now is to redesign your world so that freedom is the easiest option. This is achieved through 2 opposing principles: increasing friction for your old chain and decreasing friction for your new habits. 1. Increase friction, the obstacle course. This means making it as difficult, annoying, and inconvenient as possible to execute your old routine. Think about your chain and brainstorm how you can put obstacles between the cue and the routine. If your vice is eating junk food at night, the most obvious obstacle is not having it at home. The friction of having to get dressed, grab your keys, and drive to the store at 10 p.m. is often enough to deter you. If your vice is social media, delete the apps from your phone. This creates immense friction. To access them, you would have to open the browser, search for the page, log in. It's much more cumbersome than simply tapping an icon. Other forms of friction include putting your phone in grayscale mode to make it less attractive, or the most effective of all, leaving the phone in another room while you work or sleep. If your vice is compulsive spending, leave credit cards at home. Use only cash. Cancel marketing email subscriptions. Delete saved credit card information from browsers. Every small obstacle is an ally in your fight. Decrease friction, the easy path. Now the second principle, decrease the friction for your new habits, the ones you listed in your substitution menu. You have to make it absurdly easy to start doing the right thing. If you want to replace TV time at night with reading, don't leave the book on a shelf. Leave the book you're reading open on your pillow or on the armchair where you usually sit to watch TV. Take the batteries out of the remote control and put them in a drawer in another room. By doing this, you have increased the friction for watching TV and decreased the friction for reading to zero. The choice becomes almost automatic. If you want to start exercising in the morning, sleep in your workout clothes or leave them laid out next to your bed. Have your shoes and socks ready. Fill your water bottle the night before. Eliminate every small decision that might cause you to hesitate at 6 a.m. Become the architect of your space. Make your good intentions visible and your old chains invisible. This key environmental redesign is the difference between fighting an uphill battle every day and letting the gravity of a well-designed environment pull you toward freedom. Master Key 3. Rituals of Freedom. We have forged the key of substitution to consciously change our response to cues, and the key of environmental redesign to change the cues themselves. The third and final master key focuses on creating new automatic patterns that protect and strengthen us even before the old cues have a chance to appear. This is the key of the rituals of freedom. A ritual is more than a routine. A routine is something you do. A ritual is something that embodies who you are. It adds a layer of intention and meaning to a series of actions, transforming them into an anchor for your day and your identity. The most powerful rituals are the ones we use to start and end the day. These are the moments when our mind is most suggestible and when we can set the trajectory for the hours ahead or consolidate the lessons of the day that is ending. The morning freedom ritual, the proactive start. Most people start their day in a state of chaotic reactivity. The first thing they do is grab their phone. They flood their newly awakened brain with news, emails, notifications, and the opinions of other people. They start the day by surrendering their power, attention, and peace to an algorithm. It is the worst possible ritual. We are going to create a morning freedom ritual. It doesn't have to be long or complicated. 5 to 10 minutes is enough, but it must be sacred and non-negotiable. A possible ritual could be hydration. Before coffee, before anything else, drink a large glass of water. You are hydrating your body and brain after hours of fasting. Movement. Do 1 minute of simple stretching or jumping jacks. You are waking up your body and telling it, I am here, I am alive. Anchoring. Sit in silence for 2 minutes. Simply breathe and feel the sensation of being alive without doing anything. Intention. Read your declaration of freedom aloud, the one you wrote in the previous chapter. You are reminding your subconscious of your mission for that day. By doing this, you have started the day proactively. You have won your first battle before the war has even begun. You have connected with yourself before connecting with the world. The evening freedom ritual, the calm transition. Equally important is the evening ritual. Your night ritual of freedom should be a transition toward calm. For example, disconnection. 1 hour before bed, turn off all screens. The phone goes to charge in another room. Preparation. Prepare a cup of caffeine-free tea. Lay out your clothes for the next day. This act of preparation reduces future anxiety. Reflection. Write in a journal for 5 minutes. Note one thing you are grateful for and one victory you had that day in your fight for freedom, no matter how small. Reading. Read 10 pages of a paper book. Not a thriller that makes your heart race, but something that inspires or calms you. These rituals are the foundations of your new castle of freedom. They are automatic, positive behaviors that occupy the mental and temporal space previously held by your chain, making it much harder for it to find a crack to slip through. We have covered a lot of ground. We have forged 3 master keys. Substitution, to consciously change your routine when a cue appears. Environmental redesign, to make your environment work for you, eliminating negative cues and facilitating positive ones. And rituals of freedom, to build new automatic foundations of personal power. You are no longer a helpless prisoner. You have become an engineer, an architect, a blacksmith. You are an active fugitive who is not just planning their escape, but is actively building the tools to achieve it and designing the free world they want to live in. In the next chapter, we will face the battle that takes place not in the outer world, but on the most important battlefield of all, your own mind. Chapter 5. The Mastermind versus the Slave Mind. In the previous chapters, we acted as strategists, architects, and blacksmiths. We worked in the external world. We mapped our habits, designed a new environment, and forged tools to change our actions. But all that work will be in vain if we do not win the war being fought in the most intimate and crucial territory of all, the space between your ears. The final battle for your freedom is not won by changing what you do, but by changing how you think. Today we are going to delve into your inner dialogue to identify the 2 forces competing for control of your life, the slave mind and the mastermind, the corrupt lawyer versus the wise sovereign within you. At this very moment reside 2 voices. Listen carefully and you will recognize them. The slave mind, the impulse. The first voice is noisy, impulsive, impatient, and terribly persuasive. It is the slave mind. This is the most primitive part of your brain, the one that cares about only one thing, immediate survival through pleasure and the avoidance of pain. It doesn't care about your future. Its only temporal horizon is now. It wants the reward and it wants it now. The slave mind is a master of manipulation. It is a brilliant lawyer hired to defend your worst impulses. Its language is seductive and full of excuses that sound incredibly reasonable at the moment. It is the voice that whispers, "Just for this time. Tomorrow I'll start. You've had a very hard day. You deserve it. It's not a big deal. What the hell? You've already failed. What does it matter?" It appeals to the most basic part of your nature, the mastermind, the intention. But there is another voice within you. It is quieter, wiser, and more patient. It is the mastermind. This is the voice of your higher consciousness, your prefrontal lobe. It is the part of you that can conceive of a future and make decisions based on long-term goals and values. Its language is not one of impulse, but of intention. It speaks of discipline, integrity, freedom, and self-respect. The problem is that the mastermind is by nature quieter. It doesn't shout. It reasons. And in moments of stress, fatigue, or temptation, the screams of the slave mind often completely drown out the wise counsel of the mastermind. Our goal is not to kill the slave mind. That's impossible. It's a fundamental part of your animal brain. Our goal is to learn to recognize its voice, to smile at its ridiculous arguments, to strip it of its power, and consciously choose to yield the microphone to the mastermind. To be free does not mean not having impulses. It means not being a slave to them. Unmasking the slave's lies, the first step to disarming a liar is to learn to recognize their lies. The slave mind has a limited repertoire of excuses, but it repeats them with astonishing conviction. Your job is to become an observer of your own thoughts, and when one of these excuses appears in your mind, instead of believing it, you simply label it. You say to yourself with calm amusement, "Interesting. That's my slave mind talking again." This simple act of labeling creates a psychological distance. It separates you from the thought. Let's break down some of its most common lies. Lie number 1, "Just this once. Tomorrow I'll start over." This phrase is responsible for more broken dreams than any other. It sounds harmless, but it's a deadly poison. The truth: tomorrow is a mythical land that does not exist. The only time you can act is now. Furthermore, this lie ignores the what the hell effect. When you break a rule, your mind tends to say, What the hell, I've already ruined the day. So I might as well go big. Every action is a vote for the type of person you want to be. Lie number 2. You deserve it. You've had a hard day and earned a reward. This lie is especially tricky because it masquerades as self-care. The slave mind equates immediate pleasure with deservingness. The truth. Redefine what you truly deserve. Do you deserve 5 minutes of pleasure, followed by 3 hours of guilt and self-resentment? Or do you deserve to wake up tomorrow feeling proud, strong, and in control of your life? The true reward is not the dopamine hit of your old habit. The true reward is freedom. Lie number 3. It's not a big deal. It's not that big of a problem. This is the voice of minimization. It tries to make you forget the pain that brought you here. The truth. Your job is to remember. Remember why you started this journey. To combat this lie, use the technique. Play the full movie. The slave mind only shows you the appealing trailer, the pleasure. Your job is to play the full movie in your mind until the end. Visualize the guilt, the mental fog, the low energy that will inevitably follow. Then play the full movie of what will happen if you resist, a few minutes of struggle followed by a surge of pride and strength. When you compare the two full movies, the choice becomes obvious. Surfing the urge, the craving, we've learned to unmask the lies. But what do we do with the physical sensation of the impulse, the craving that feels like a monster inside us? Our instinctive reaction is to fight it, but trying to suppress an urge is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It requires enormous energy and is destined to fail. We need to completely change our approach. A craving is not an order you must obey. It is simply a combination of thoughts and sensations in your body. And like all sensations, it is temporary. It is like a wave in the ocean. It grows in intensity, reaches a peak, and then inevitably breaks and dissolves on the shore. Your task is not to stop the wave. Your task is to learn to surf it. Technique: surfing the urge. Recognize and accept. Say in your mind, okay, I'm feeling a strong urge to do your routine. Do not judge it. Simply name it. Be curious. Approach the sensation like a curious scientist. Where exactly do you feel it in your body? Is it tension? Is it hot, cold, vibrating, stabbing? Observe its physical qualities, without adding a story or a judgment. Breathe into the sensation. Direct your attention to the area of your body where the craving is most intense and breathe toward it. Imagine your breath as a warm solvent that surrounds the sensation, giving it space and softening it. You are allowing it to be there without letting it dominate you. Observe the change, keep breathing and watching. You will notice that the sensation is not static. It fluctuates. It reaches its peak and then inevitably begins to lose strength. Stay present until the intensity has dropped to a manageable level. Every time you successfully surf an urge without acting on it, you are achieving something miraculous. You are rewiring your brain. You are teaching it 2 vital lessons. 1. The urge is not an emergency, and 2. It disappears on its own if you give it time. Strengthening the master's voice. The final step is to actively cultivate and strengthen the voice of the master mind. The master mind, like willpower, is a muscle that strengthens with every repetition. Identity language. The master mind speaks the language of identity, not deprivation. Don't ask, what do I want right now? Ask, what would the person I am committed to becoming do? Act as if you are already that person. Gratitude as antidote. Introduce the practice of gratitude as an antidote to the poison of self-pity. When temptation strikes, instead of focusing on what you are sacrificing, make a mental list of what you are grateful for in this process. I'm grateful for the health I'm building in my body. I'm grateful for the freedom I'm claiming. By choosing gratitude, you are actively feeding the mastermind. We have journeyed today to the center of the battlefield. We have learned to distinguish between the strident voice of the inner slave and the wise whisper of the master. This battle is won decision by decision, moment by moment. You have gone from being a passive participant in your internal dialogue to becoming the conscious director of the conversation. You are learning to take the helm, and although the slave mind will never completely disappear, its voice will become weaker and weaker, a distant echo in the vast, serene space of your new free mind. Chapter 6. Breaking the Social Contract of Vice. There is an old adage that says you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Read that again. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is not just a motivational phrase. It is a fundamental law of human nature. We are inherently social creatures, designed to adapt, to fit in, to belong. From the dawn of humanity, being excluded from the tribe was a death sentence. That primal fear of exclusion still operates deep within our brain, and it is often the most formidable guardian of our prison. Until now, we have approached our chain as a purely individual problem. We have mapped our habit loops, found our why, forged keys, and fought the battle in our mind. But if we ignore the social context in which we live, we are ignoring the invisible current that may be constantly dragging us back to the shore of slavery. In every group we belong to, our family, our friends, our co-workers, there is an unwritten social contract. It is a set of shared rules, rituals, and behaviors that define what it means to be part of that group. And very often, our personal chains are a fundamental clause of that contract. Think about it. The smoke break is not just an act of consuming nicotine. It is a ritual of camaraderie with co-workers. The night out drinking with friends is not just about consuming alcohol. It is the glue that holds the group together, the setting where confidences are shared and memories are made. Family meals can be inextricably linked to the act of overeating, as a way to show love and celebration. Even something as simple as a group of friends who bond over complaining and cynicism has a social contract. To belong, you have to participate in the negativity. Your vice, therefore, may not be just your vice. It may be an entry ticket to the club, a password, a part of the uniform, and that is why the idea of abandoning it terrifies us. We don't just fear losing the pleasure or relief the habit provides. We fear something much deeper. We fear that by breaking the habit, we will be breaking the contract. We fear that if we stop participating in the ritual, we will be expelled from the tribe. We fear our friends will think we are boring. Our family will see us as an oddball. Our peers will leave us aside. And that fear of being left alone is, for many, a chain stronger than any chemical addiction. Today, we are going to face that fear head-on. We are going to learn to renegotiate these social contracts, not with aggression or arrogance, but with a clear, compassionate, and firm strategy. We are going to stop being a leaf, carried by the social current, and become the captain of our own ship, capable of navigating these complex waters with intention and grace. Auditing your social landscape. The first step to navigating a territory is to audit it. You need a clear map of your social landscape to know where your allies, your obstacles, and your neutral zones are. I ask you to do a mental exercise now. Think about the key people in your life, those you spend the most time with or whose opinion you value most. As you think about each one, you are going to classify them into one of three categories in relation to your chain. Allies, the treasures. An ally is someone who, when you tell them your decision to change, will support you unconditionally. They may not fully understand your struggle, but they respect your decision and want to see you happy and healthy. They are the people who will tell you, "That's great. I'm really proud of you. How can I help?" Allies are fundamental pillars for your freedom. Identify them and feel grateful for having them in your life. Neutrals, the majority. This is by far the largest category. Neutrals are people in your life who simply won't be much affected by your change. Perhaps they are co-workers you have a cordial relationship with, or friends with whom you don't share the habit in question. Your decision to change does not threaten their identity or their routines. They may briefly congratulate you, or not even notice the change. It is important to recognize this group, to realize that most of the world is not as focused on your habits as you think. Accomplices, the strategic focus. This is the most delicate category and the one that requires all our strategic attention. An accomplice is someone whose own identity or habits are intertwined with your chain. They are your partners in vice, the friend you always drink with, the family member you always overeat with, the peer you always complain with. When you decide to change, you are unintentionally holding up a mirror to them. Your act of freedom illuminates their own lack of it, and that generates deep discomfort for them. It is crucial to understand that most accomplices are not evil people who want to see you suffer. Their resistance to your change is almost never about you. It's about them. Their reaction will sabotage your progress, but their intention is not necessarily malicious. It is a defense mechanism to protect their own comfort and avoid facing their own chains. They will say phrases like, "Come on, don't be boring. Just one won't hurt you. You've changed. You used to be more fun. You're exaggerating." It's not a big deal. Every one of these phrases is a desperate invitation for you to return to the cell with them, because if you stay inside, they don't have to question the bars of their own. Renegotiating the contract, the freedom script. Once you have identified your accomplices, you need a plan for the inevitable conversation. The way you handle this conversation can determine the future of the relationship and the success of your journey. The common approach is often wrong. People adopt a tone of moral superiority, which is a guaranteed disaster. The correct approach is humble, personal, firm, and non-negotiable. It's not about convincing anyone of anything. It's about informing them of a decision you have already made and respectfully asking for the support you need. I propose a simple 4-step template for this freedom script. Practice saying it aloud so it sounds natural and secure. Inform of your decision clearly and directly. Hey, I wanted to tell you something. I've made the decision to stop your habit. It is a statement of fact, not a request for permission. Share your deep why briefly and personally. I'm doing this because I want to have more energy for my family, or I'm doing this for my peace of mind. It's something very important to me right now. By sharing your why, you make it clear that this is a deep personal decision, not a passing whim. Set a clear boundary and ask for support. This is the most important part. You have to be explicit about what you need. I know we usually do the habit when we get together, so I would really appreciate your support by not offering it to me or not insisting. Reaffirm the relationship and suggest an alternative. You must make it clear that your decision is about the habit, not about them. Our friendship is really important to me, and of course I want to keep spending time with you. How about next time, instead of going to the bar, we go for a walk or check out that exhibit? Now prepare for the accomplice's response. It is highly likely they will test your resolve. When they say the classic phrase, "Come on, just for today, it's fine," do not enter into a debate. Do not try to justify your decision again. Simply become a broken record, kind but firm. Smile and repeat your boundary. I appreciate it truly, but I'm going to pass. It's important to me. Your serenity proves that your decision is not emotional or negotiable. It is a new reality. Building the tribe of freedom, managing existing relationships, is one part of the equation. The other, equally important, is actively building a new social environment that supports and celebrates the person you are becoming. You have to build your own tribe of freedom. Strengthen connections with allies. Be proactive. Call them more often. Schedule activities with them. Spend more time with people who make you feel good about yourself and who reflect the values of your new identity. Their positive energy is contagious and will reinforce your own resolve. Actively seek new circles. The fastest way to adopt a new identity is to surround yourself with people who already live that identity as normal. If you want to be a healthier person, join a hiking group or a yoga class. If you need specific support, seek out support groups. Immerse yourself in an environment where your desired self is the standard behavior. When you are in a group where not smoking is the norm, not smoking requires zero effort. Make conscious choices about accomplices. This doesn't necessarily mean cutting off all relationships, but it does mean setting very clear boundaries. Perhaps you decide you will only see certain friends for lunch instead of dinner, knowing that night is a cue for your old habit. You must become the guardian of your own energy and time. Your well-being is your responsibility, and you have the right and duty to protect it. Breaking the social contract of your vice is one of the most powerful acts of personal sovereignty that exists. It is declaring to the world and to yourself that your primary loyalty is no longer to the expectations of the group, but to your own well-being and your own future. You stop being a supporting actor in other people's scenes and become the director of your own movie. In doing so, you not only free yourself, but you also offer a gift to those around you. The inspiring example of a person who had the courage to choose their own freedom. Chapter 7. The Anatomy of a Fall. You've been working hard. You've faced uncomfortable truths, found your deepest motivation, redesigned your environment, and learned to navigate the complex battles of your mind and your social circle. You feel stronger, more aware, more in control than you have felt in a long time. And then, one day it happens. An especially stressful day, an unexpected moment of weakness, an old cue that catches you off guard, and you fall. You yield to the old routine. The chain, which you had loosened so much, tightens again with a brutal snap. In that moment, a wave of emotions floods you. First, perhaps the fleeting relief provided by the old habit. But immediately after comes the avalanche. Frustration, rage against yourself, and above all, an immense paralyzing shame. And amidst that emotional storm, the slave mind, which had been waiting in silence, seizes its opportunity. It whispers its most lethal poison in your ear. See, I told you. You can't change. You are weak. All this effort was for nothing. You have failed. If there is one moment when most people abandon this journey, it is this one. It is not the fall itself that destroys progress. It is the story we tell ourselves about the fall. It is the toxic belief that a single lost battle means the war is over. Today we are going to dismantle that belief. We are going to change your relationship with failure forever. We are going to transform your moment of greatest weakness into your source of greatest strength. Because a fall doesn't have to be the end of your journey. In fact, if you learn how to analyze it correctly, it can be the beginning of your true mastery. The all-or-nothing trap, the what-the-hell effect. The first thing we must do is normalize the fall. Erase the fantasy of a perfectly linear upward path to freedom from your mind. That is not how human change works. Real change looks more like learning to walk. A child learning to stand doesn't succeed on the first try. They fall dozens, hundreds of times. But do we consider every fall a catastrophic failure? Of course not. We understand intuitively that every fall is an essential part of the learning process. Every stumble is a lesson. Your journey to freedom is exactly the same. You are not failing. You are learning to walk in a new world without your old crutches. There will be stumbles. There will be falls. Expecting them, accepting them as part of the curriculum, is not a sign of weakness but of deep wisdom. The goal is not perfection. The goal is resilience. To achieve this, we need to install a new operating system in your mind. The old system, the one that has made you fail in the past, operates under a toxic idea called the abstinence violation effect. This is simply an elegant way of describing the what-the-hell effect we discussed. It works like this. You set a strict rule, I will never do X again. The moment you do X, even a tiny version, you feel you have violated the rule entirely. You see yourself as a total failure. And since you already consider yourself a failure, you think, what the hell, I've already ruined my perfect record, so I might as well go big. The real damage is not caused by the initial slip. It is caused by the all-or-nothing mentality that follows. Our job is to create an emergency protocol, an action plan that automatically activates the instant you realize you have fallen. A plan that short-circuits the abstinence violation effect and puts you back on the path not just unscathed, but wiser. To your post-fall protocol. From shame to strategy, this is your post-fall protocol. It consists of 3 immediate steps you must memorize. Step 1. Stop the bleeding, win the next minute. This is the most important and urgent rule. A slip is a slip, not a slide. The fact that you stumbled does not mean you have to throw yourself head first down the rest of the hill. Your most important decision in this whole journey is the one you make in the second immediately following a fall. You must ignore the slave mind telling you to continue the self-destruction. Your only priority is to stop the spiral. Whatever you just did, it's done. The question is, what are you going to do now? The answer must be an action that breaks the pattern. Get up, drink a glass of water, leave the room you are in, call one of your allies, go for a 5-minute walk, do anything, however small, that physically removes you from the behavior and proves to yourself that despite the slip, you are still in command. Step 2. Practice radical self-compassion. Your immediate instinct after a fall will be self-flagellation. You will insult yourself, call yourself weak, and wallow in guilt. This is the worst mistake you can make. Shame and self-hatred are the slave mind's favorite fuel. The worse you feel about yourself, the more likely you are to seek comfort in the only source you know, your old vice. Self-criticism does not lift you. It sinks you deeper into the mud. You must learn to become your own best friend. In that moment of maximum vulnerability, put a hand on your heart and repeat in your mind, it's okay. I made a mistake. I am human. This path is difficult. I forgive myself, and I choose to move forward. Compassion is not an excuse for bad behavior. It is the only environment in which true growth can occur. Step 3. Conduct a 5-minute forensic analysis. Once the initial emotional storm has passed and you have stopped the bleeding, it's time to put on your detective hat. The fall is not a verdict on your character. It is a set of data waiting to be analyzed. It is a valuable clue showing you a crack in your defense system. Take 5 minutes, no more. The goal is to extract the lesson quickly. Using the habit loop knowledge, ask yourself these questions with objective curiosity. The cue: what was the exact trigger? Be specific. Was it stress? Was it a combination of tiredness, loneliness, and stress late at night? Identify the exact recipe for disaster. The reward: what deep emotional need was I trying to satisfy with that routine? Comfort, escape, distraction from boredom? The weak point. And now the most important question: where did my strategy fail? What could I have done differently? Did you fail to recognize the cue in time? Was your substitution menu not good enough for that specific need? Find the weak link in your defense chain. The final step: rebuilding stronger. Once you have completed your forensic analysis and extracted the lesson, it's time to move from detective to architect. You must use that information to rebuild the wall stronger than before. Patching the cue. If the problem was the cue, e.g., extreme exhaustion, your system needs a new protocol for exhaustion. Maybe the new rule is, the moment I feel this level of tiredness, my only priority is to go to bed. No negotiations. Use the fall to perfect your environmental strategy. Upgrading the routine. If the problem was the routine, it means your substitution plan wasn't fast or good enough. If the reward you sought was comfort, and your menu only had high-energy options like go for a walk, it was bound to fail. You need to add a new low-energy comfort routine, e.g., when I feel exhausted and need comfort, I will make hot cocoa and wrap myself in a blanket for 10 minutes, fortifying the mindset. If the problem was the mindset, what slave mind lie did you believe? Identify it and create a specific counter-argument for it. If you believe the lie that you deserved it, your new affirmation might be, I deserve the peace and pride that come from holding strong. You are transforming the fall. It is no longer a source of shame. It has become an elite training session. Every time you fall and apply this protocol, your freedom system becomes smarter, more robust, and more bulletproof. The person who gets up from a fall using this method is not the same person who fell. They are an upgraded version. The last step of the process is as simple as it is crucial. Get back on the path immediately, not tomorrow, not next Monday. Your next action, your next meal, your next decision must be aligned with your goal. The best way to prove to yourself that you are still in the game is to start playing again right away. From today, you no longer have to be afraid of falling. The fear of failing is one of the heaviest chains that exist because it paralyzes us and prevents us from even trying. But you have just stripped it of its power. You have turned failure into your teacher. You have learned to extract wisdom from error and strength from vulnerability. You know that if you fall, you won't stay on the ground wallowing in self-pity. You know you will get up, dust yourself off, analyze why you fell, adjust your strategy, and keep walking, not despite the fall, but because of it. And a person who no longer fears falling is, in essence, an unstoppable person. Chapter 8. Life Beyond the Walls. Imagine a prisoner who has spent years in a small, dark cell. His sole goal, his only dream, the only idea occupying his every thought, is freedom. He struggles, plots, digs a tunnel with a spoon for years, and finally, one night, he emerges on the other side of the wall. He breathes the fresh air, feels the grass under his feet, looks at the starry sky, and feels euphoric. He is free. But the next morning, he wakes up in the middle of a vast field with no map, no destination, and no purpose. The fight for freedom had given him a reason to live. But now that he is free, a new, terrifying question begins to echo in his mind. What now? This is a stage of the journey that very few anticipate. We are so focused on the struggle, on the act of escaping, that we fail to plan what we will do with our freedom once we achieve it. And this leads us to one of the most dangerous paradoxes of recovery: the vacuum. Your chain, despite all the pain and destruction it caused, occupied an enormous space in your life. It occupied your time, your thoughts, your mental energy, your rituals. It was your main strategy for dealing with boredom, stress, loneliness, and joy. By removing it, you leave a crater, and if you do not fill that crater consciously and intentionally, the law of nature and psychology dictates that something will fill it for you. And very often what grows back in that wasteland is the same weed that cost you so much to uproot, or a new, equally destructive one. Freedom, therefore, is not merely the absence of chains. That is only half the equation. True freedom is the presence of something you are passionate about, a purpose that drives you forward. The previous chapters focused on demolition, on dismantling the prison. This chapter marks a turning point. From now on, we will become architects. We will stop looking back at the cell we escaped and start looking forward to the city of our dreams that we are going to build on the land we have recovered. We are going to change the focus, moving from the question, "What am I running from?" to the much more exciting question, "What am I running toward?" Finding your compass, the joy diagnostic. To begin building, we first need to find our compass. For many people who have lived for years under the domination of a chain, this is a surprisingly difficult task. The constant noise of the vice, the craving, the planning, the execution, the recovery, drowns out the quiet voice of our true self. Our task now is to gently awaken it. We are going to perform a joy diagnostic, an exercise in introspection to find the clues that will guide us to our lost passions. 1. Look to the past, the authentic self. Travel back to your childhood or adolescence, to a time before your chain was fully forged. What did you love to do? What activity could absorb you for hours without you noticing the time? Perhaps it was drawing comics, building things with your hands, or writing stories. Do not dismiss anything as childish or silly. These activities were the purest expression of your innate curiosity. Note 3 or 4 of these activities. 2. Analyze the present, the compass of envy. Now let's analyze the present through a very revealing emotion, healthy envy. I don't mean the toxic envy that wishes ill upon another person, but that pang of longing you feel when you see someone doing something you find admirable. That envy is not a sign of your shortcomings. It is your inner compass pointing to a buried desire. Do you feel that pang when you see a friend run a marathon, when you see someone speak a second language fluently? Pay attention to those moments. They are lighthouses illuminating the territories your soul wishes to explore. List 3 things that provoke this healthy envy. 3. Embrace active exploration, the curiosity shop. Give yourself permission to act like a tourist in your own life with a curiosity shop mindset. Your only mission is to gather data on what sparks even a minimal interest in you. Visit a bookstore and see what section your feet naturally gravitate toward. Spend an hour browsing an online course platform. The goal is not to commit to anything. It is simply to expose yourself to new stimuli and observe what resonates. And while doing all this, you must give yourself a fundamental permission. The permission to be a beginner. You must ignore the voice of the slave mind that says, "It's too late to learn the piano." Joy resides not in mastery, it resides in the process. Freedom is giving yourself permission to be a disaster at first. Building the 4 pillars of a full life. Once you have gathered these clues, it's time to start building. A full, satisfying life is supported by several pillars. Your vice was like trying to hold up an entire building on a single, rotten, shaky pillar. Now we are going to build 4 solid, healthy, and robust pillars. Choose one small action to start with for each of them. 1. Pillar 1, creation. Vices often turn us into passive consumers. The most powerful antidote to this emptiness is to become an active creator. The act of bringing something new into the world generates a sense of pride and purpose that no consumption can equal. Action. Cook a new recipe, plant a small balcony garden, write a blog entry, or even just organize and rearrange a room to create a more beautiful, functional space. Dedicate 30 minutes a week to a small creative project that calls to you. 2. Pillar 2. Connection. Our chains often thrive in isolation. Freedom gives us the opportunity to rebuild and deepen our relationships. Action. Call a family member you haven't talked to in a while. Organize a dinner or outing with friends that doesn't revolve around your old shared vice. Seek out a community group that shares one of your new interests, hiking, reading. Practice the art of presence. When with loved ones, put your phone away and listen with the intention to understand. 3. Pillar 3. Challenge. Comfort is the cradle of the slave mind. Your soul yearns for growth, and growth only happens at the edge of your comfort zone. You need a healthy challenge that demands effort and shows you what you are capable of. Action. Set a physical challenge, like training for your first 5K run, or a mental challenge, like committing to learn one new word in a foreign language every day. Read books that challenge you. The act of overcoming your limits builds a confidence that transfers to all other areas of your life. 4. Pillar 4. Contribution. Chains are, in essence, deeply selfish. The focus is directed inward, my impulse, my need, my relief. One of the fastest ways out of this self-centered loop is to shift the focus outward. Action. Mentor a younger colleague at work, volunteer an hour on the weekend for a local cause, or simply focus on being a better listener for your friends. The act of contributing connects us to something bigger than ourselves and gives us a sense of purpose and worth that no vice could ever imitate. Creation. Connection. Challenge. Contribution. These are the 4 pillars of a life that is not only free of chains, but vibrant, meaningful, and deeply satisfying. The new question. You are building a life so incredibly rich and full of color that the old gray cell of your vice will begin to seem pathetic and absurd in comparison. The question will no longer be, how can I resist the temptation to go back? The new question will be, why on earth would I want to go back to that when I have all this waiting for me? You will no longer be defined by what you left behind. You are not an ex-smoker or an addict in recovery. You are a gardener. You are an athlete. You are a creator. You have ceased to be an escaped prisoner. You have become the founder of a new world. Chapter 9. The Birth of Your New Self. Who are you? It is one of the deepest questions we can ask ourselves. For a long time, perhaps years, part of your answer to that question has been linked, consciously or unconsciously, to your chain. Maybe you didn't say it aloud, but deep down, the story you told yourself about yourself included a dark chapter. I am a person who smokes. I am someone who can't control what I eat. This story, this self-image, has been one of the thickest walls of your prison. In our journey together, you have made extraordinary changes. You have stopped executing a destructive routine. You have changed your behaviors, your environment, your relationships, your way of thinking. You have been acting like a free person. But here lies one of the last and most subtle traps on the path. It is possible to change your actions without fully updating your identity. You may go weeks or months without yielding to your old habit, but deep down, you still see yourself as an addict in recovery, or a smoker who is holding out. This old identity is like a persistent shadow. It is a gravitational force that constantly tries to pull you back to the old patterns. As long as you continue to see yourself as a prisoner on parole, there will always be a risk of returning to the cell. Freedom is not truly yours until it stops being something you do and becomes someone you are. The goal of this chapter is not to give you more strategies to fight. The goal is to guide you through the process of writing the final chapter of your old story and beginning to write the first chapter of the new one. It is time to witness the birth of your new self. Identity as evidence. To understand how to consolidate this change, we must first understand that our identity is not a fixed thing carved in stone. Your identity is, in essence, a story. It is the narrative your mind has built about who you are based on the evidence of your past actions. If you have acted a certain way for years, your brain has concluded, evidently this is the kind of person I am. The good news is that, as authors of our own story, we have the power to edit it and rewrite it. Psychologist and habit expert James Clear describes 3 levels of change. The most superficial level is outcome change. I want to lose 10 pounds. The second level is process change. I will go to the gym 3 times a week. But the deepest and most powerful level is identity change. I am the type of person who is active and takes care of their body. True, lasting change happens from the inside out. You start by deciding who you want to be, and then you ask yourself, what would a person with this identity do right now? If you want to be a productive person, you don't ask, how can I stop procrastinating? You ask, what would a productive person do at this moment? The answer is usually simple. They would probably start working on the most important task for 5 minutes. And by doing so, however small the act, you have just cast a vote in favor of your new identity. The problem is that the slave mind is an expert at rigging elections. It ignores your hundreds of positive votes and, the moment you have a slip-up, yells, "Fraud, see? You're still the same old you." Our job now is to become fair election observers. It is time to count the votes, acknowledge the overwhelming evidence you have accumulated, and officially declare the winner. It is time to claim your new identity. 3 tools for reinforcing your new identity. To accelerate and consolidate this process, we will use 3 practical identity reinforcement tools. These tools will help make your new story so real and so convincing that the old narrative fades like a forgotten dream. 1. The language of freedom, new labels. The words we use to describe ourselves have immense power. They are the brush with which we paint the canvas of our self-image. From today, you will conduct a conscious audit of your language. Eliminate old labels. Commit to stop using words like addict, smoker, or procrastinator to describe yourself, even in the context of in recovery. These words anchor you to the past and define you by your problem, not your potential. Consciously adopt new labels. Start referring to yourself both in your internal dialogue and, when appropriate, in conversations with others, with the identity you are building. Don't say, "I'm trying to eat healthier." Say, "I am a person who enjoys healthy food." Don't say, "I'm trying to write a book." Say, "I am a writer." Act it till you believe it. Every time you use the language of your new identity, you are sending a clear instruction to your subconscious. You are rehearsing your new role until it becomes your true nature. 2. Identity affirmations, the GPS program. An effective affirmation is not vague, like "I am wonderful." It must be specific and anchored to your identity and your actions. I propose a simple formula. I am your new identity, and because of that, today I will, a key action to be able to feel the desired benefit. Example: I am a disciplined athlete, and because of that, today I will go for a 20-minute run so I can feel strong and energized. Example: I am a focused creator, and because of that, today I will dedicate 15 minutes to my project without distractions so I can feel the pride of my progress. Choose 1 or 2 affirmations that resonate with you. Integrate them into your morning ritual. Say it aloud while looking in the mirror. This is a declaration of intentions that aligns your mind, body, and spirit toward a common goal before the chaos of the day tries to divert you. 3. Evidence log, winning the trial. Your identity is built on evidence. The slave mind is an expert prosecutor, incredibly skilled at finding every proof of your failures while completely ignoring the proof of your successes. To win the trial, you need an equally good defense attorney, yourself. Starting tonight, you will begin an evidence log or a victory journal. Every night before sleeping, you must write one single thing, one piece of evidence, however small, that proves you acted in accordance with your new identity that day. Evidence. Today I felt the urge to grab my phone out of boredom and instead I read 2 pages of a book. The evidence: I am a person who values my mind. Evidence. Today at work, everyone was complaining, and I decided not to participate. The evidence: I am a person who cultivates positivity. This simple exercise, which won't take you more than 2 minutes, is transformative. First, it forces you to end each day on a note of success. Second, it trains you to actively look for the proof of your own progress throughout the day. And third, over time you will build a document, a mountain of irrefutable proof of your change. On days of doubt, when the slave mind tries to tell you the old story that you are a failure, you can open your journal and say, "The evidence suggests otherwise. Here are 100 proofs that I am no longer that person." The consolidation. The new autopilot. The final step is simply to live it, to start fully embodying that person. Ask yourself, how would the free, confident version of myself walk? How would they talk? How would they manage a stressful situation? You will reach a day. It might be in 3 weeks or 6 months. There will be no fireworks or divine revelation. You will simply realize something. You will face an old cue, an old trigger, and you will notice that the urge is no longer there. Or it is so weak that it is barely a distant whisper. You will realize that you haven't had to use your emergency strategies in weeks. When you think of your old habit, you will feel it as if it were the story of someone else, a distant movie you watched a long time ago. At that moment, you will know you have succeeded. Not because the old program has been erased from your brain. It will always be latent. But because the new program, the mastermind program, has become much stronger, faster, and more efficient. Freedom has become your new autopilot. That, and no other, is the true definition of success. You have traveled from the depths of the cell to the top of the mountain. You have learned that your identity is not your destiny, but your decision. You have not only broken your chains, you have forged a new identity. You have ceased to be a prisoner fighting for your freedom to become a free person who simply lives their life. You have witnessed the birth of your new self. Now, in our last chapter, we will learn how to protect and nourish this new being for the rest of its wonderful life. Chapter 10. The Vigilant Guardian. We have reached the end of our journey together, but the beginning of a new, much longer one, the rest of your life. If you have followed the steps, done the inner work, faced your fears, and celebrated your victories, I want you to pause for a moment and congratulate yourself. You have achieved something extraordinary. You have looked into the eyes of the part of you that kept you a slave and chosen freedom. You have moved from being an unconscious prisoner to a conscious rebel and finally, to the sovereign of your own life. The war, the intense daily battle for every inch of ground has ended. But the end of the war does not mean the end of responsibility. Freedom, once won, must be protected. Your role now changes. You are no longer the fugitive digging a tunnel in the dark, nor the revolutionary assaulting the walls. Now you become something nobler and more serene. You become the guardian of your own freedom. Being a guardian is not a role of stress and constant struggle. It does not mean living in fear, constantly looking over your shoulder, anticipating an attack. A good guardian does not live in a state of panic, but in a state of calm and vigilant attention. They know their territory. They understand the weaknesses of their defenses. They know how to spot an enemy from a distance, long before it reaches the gates. Their job is not to fight ceaselessly, but to keep the castle of their freedom so strong, so well maintained, and so full of life that no invader dares approach. We must be realistic. The neural pathways your old chain forged in your brain over years do not disappear completely. They become dormant, overgrown with disuse, but the imprints remain. You can think of it as a sleeping dragon in the deepest cave of your mind. We have put it to sleep. We have blocked the cave entrance, but the dragon is still there. A wise guardian does not live in fear of the dragon. They simply do not forget that it exists. They know what things can disturb its sleep and make sure not to do them. Their vigilance is not fear. It is respect for the power of the enemy they have vanquished. Today we will learn the arts of the guardian, how to maintain peace, how to recognize the first signs of trouble, and how to create a life plan that makes your freedom not just long-lasting, but something that expands and deepens with each passing year. The 4 horsemen of erosion, early warning signs. The greatest threat to long-term freedom is not a sudden crisis or an overwhelming temptation. It is something much more subtle and silent: complacency. It is that voice which, after months or years of success, begins to whisper, "You're cured now. You've got it beaten. You don't have to try so hard anymore." Complacency makes us drop our guard. We stop practicing the small disciplines that brought us here, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the ground we have gained begins to erode, until one day we find ourselves in a dangerously familiar place. To prevent this, a good guardian must know the early warning signs, the first cracks in the wall. Long before a real relapse, a subtle set of indicators always appears. I call them the 4 horsemen of erosion. If you learn to recognize them, you can act long before the danger is real. 1. Stagnation. This is when you stop building. You stop learning new things, abandon your creative projects, stop challenging yourself physically or mentally. Your life becomes predictable, monotonous, Boring. Boredom is a perfect ecosystem for the old chains to start regrowing. The duty of the guardian is to be an eternal learner, a constant explorer. The best defense against the temptation to go back is being too busy and excited moving forward. 2. Isolation. This is the act of starting to cut down the bridges you built. You stop calling your allies. You start making excuses not to go to that group or class that helped you so much. You spend more and more time alone, locked in your own head. Isolation is like turning off your castle's alarm system. Without the perspective and support of others, it is much easier for the slave mind to start gaining ground. The duty of the guardian is to cherish their connections as if they were the most precious treasure. Your freedom is stronger when it is shared. 3. Rationalization. This is perhaps the most dangerous because it is the internal traitor. It happens when your inner dialogue subtly changes. You start romanticizing the past. Thoughts like, "It wasn't that bad really," or "I remember the good things it gave me," begin to creep into your mind, and then comes the most lethal thought of all. "I've been good for so long now, I'm stronger. Maybe I could try just a little bit in a controlled way." This is the siren song that has led countless ships to crash on the rocks. The duty of the guardian is to have a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of thought. Do not debate. Do not negotiate. Simply cut off the conversation. Recite your declaration of freedom. 4. Exhaustion. This is the physical vulnerability that opens the doors to mental invaders. You start neglecting the fundamentals of your well-being. You sleep less. You eat poorly. You stop exercising. You live in a state of chronic stress. A tired, malnourished, and stressed brain cannot maintain vigilance. The mastermind, the rational and disciplined part of you, needs energy to function. When your batteries are low, control defaults to the slave mind, the primitive and impulsive part. The duty of the guardian is to understand that self-care is not a luxury. It is a fundamental strategic discipline. Protecting your energy is protecting your freedom. The Vigilant Guardian's Manual, a sustainable plan. To help you maintain vigilance over these 4 horsemen and practice the art of the guardian sustainably, you need a simple plan. This is your Vigilant Guardian's Manual. 1. The morning inspection. Your morning ritual is sacred. It's when the guardian walks the ramparts at dawn, checking that everything is in order. Rereading your Declaration of Freedom each morning is reaffirming your mission. This simple 5-minute act calibrates your compass for the rest of the day. 2. The weekly council meeting. Once a week, reserve 15 uninterrupted minutes to sit with yourself. This is a strategy meeting with you, the Chief Guardian. During this meeting, review the past week. Ask yourself, how did I honor my new identity this week? Did I detect any of the 4 horsemen? How did I care for my pillars of wholeness? And what is my main intention for the coming week? This weekly meeting keeps you proactive instead of reactive. 3. The fire drill, the crisis protocol. Life will inevitably throw unexpected crises at you. These moments of extreme stress are high risk. You need an emergency plan that you have rehearsed mentally. Your plan could be, the moment I face a serious crisis before doing anything, my 2 first automatic actions will be 1. Call name of your main ally, and 2. Go for a 20-minute walk to clear my mind. Having this predefined protocol short-circuits panic and prevents your vice from becoming your default emergency response. 4. The mandate for growth. The most effective vigilance is not static. The best way to defend a territory is not just to build higher walls, but to constantly expand your borders. Commit to being a lifelong student. Never stop growing. The Guardian is also an explorer. When you are genuinely engrossed in learning a new skill, mastering a new field of knowledge, or exploring a new aspect of yourself, the idea of going back is not only undesirable, but boring. Curiosity is the ultimate antidote to complacency. The final evolution, from Guardian to Sage. We have traveled through incredible terrain. You started as a slave, trapped in a cell you didn't know how to escape. Through awareness and motivation, you transformed into a sovereign, the conscious ruler of your own mind, body, and destiny. But there is one final stage in this evolution. After the guardian comes the sage. A sage is a person who has fully integrated their past into their present. They no longer look at their old chains with shame or fear. They look at them with a kind of serene gratitude. They recognize that the struggle, the pain, the darkness was the fire that forged the strong, compassionate, conscious person they are today. A sage understands that their scars are not a sign of imperfection, but the proof of the battles they have overcome. Their wounds have become their source of wisdom. The final act of a sage is to use that wisdom to light the path for others. This means simply being willing to share your light. It can be as simple as listening non-judgmentally to a friend who is struggling. It can be sharing your story when appropriate, not to boast, but to offer hope. And it can be simply living your freedom in such an authentic and radiant way that you become a walking lighthouse, a silent testimony that change is possible. By helping others be free, you strengthen and honor your own freedom in the deepest way possible. This then is not the end, but the beginning. This audiobook has provided you with a map, a compass, and a set of tools, but now it is up to you to walk the territory. You no longer face life as a scared slave, but as a vigilant guardian, a serene sovereign, and a budding sage. The fight is over. The vigil has begun. Enjoy your peace, protect your freedom, and never stop exploring the vastness of the world that now opens before you. Conclusion. We have reached the end of our journey together. I want you to take a moment to recall the person you were when you first decided to press play. Remember the feeling of frustration, the weight of the silent struggle, the sensation of being trapped by a force that seemed larger than you. Look at all the ground you have covered since then. You have journeyed from the shadows of unconsciousness to the light of self-awareness. You descended into the depths of your being to find your most sacred why and ascended to become the architect of a new life. You are no longer that person. The journey has transformed you. You learned that your chains were not a sign of character weakness, but a simple neurological program, a loop that could be understood and redesigned. You stopped being a prisoner who beat against the walls and became a cartographer who drew the blueprints of your own cell. You stopped fighting with the brute force of an exhaustible willpower and began using the elegance of strategy. You forged master keys, substitution, which taught you to replace poison with nectar, environmental redesign, which taught you to make freedom the easiest option, and rituals, which taught you to build foundations of personal power. You delved into the battlefield of your own mind and learned to distinguish the strident, lying voice of the slave from the serene, wise voice of the master. You learned to surf the waves of cravings instead of drowning in them. You faced the fear of social judgment and learned to renegotiate the contracts that kept you tied down, building a tribe that celebrates your freedom. And most importantly, you learned the deepest lesson of all, that a fall is not a failure but a lesson. You transformed shame into wisdom and the fear of failing into unshakable resilience. And on the barren ground left by your old life, you have begun to build the pillars of a full existence: creation, connection, challenge, and contribution. This audiobook has been only a map, a guide, but it is you who has had the courage to walk the territory. The tools you have acquired are now yours forever. The person you have forged through this process, that version of you that is conscious, resilient, compassionate, and self-possessed, is who you are now. It is not a mask you put on. It is your true face. The fight is over. Now begins the beautiful task of living, of exploring the world with your new eyes, of enjoying the peace that comes from being the sovereign of your own inner kingdom. The cage door has been open for a while. You've walked out, explored the surroundings, and built a new house. Now it is time to turn away from the old cage forever and never look back. Your new story awaits you. Go and write it. The chains are broken. The doors are open. Go out and reclaim the life that belongs to you.